Evening. I'd like to open the Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019 meeting of the Union County Board of Commissioners. As usual, we'll open with our invocation, and this evening I'll be presented by Jerry Simpson.
Thank you. Should you wish, we'll bow. Gracious Lord, as we assemble again as a board, we seek your presence and ask that it be felt in each of us. We're blessed to live in a country that values the freedom of the individual. We recognize that you are the source of that freedom and acknowledge that it has been placed in each of our hearts by your hand. Father, we also know that with freedom you have given us the ability to make choices. Lord, help us to recognize the responsibility we share in the decisions and the direction we take. Grant us, Lord, wisdom and discernment as we deliberate over the issues affecting our county and its citizens. Despite our well-being and abundance, we know there are many among us who suffer from loss, whether it be a job, their health, a loved one. Lord, encourage us all to be the conduit that administers your love and grace in their time of need. We ask a special prayer for all those who serve and protect our military, whether at home or abroad, police and fire, emergency medical personnel, even the nurses and physicians, Lord. Be their source of strength and a shield as they protect our lives and property. Finally, O God, may all that we say and do be acceptable in thy sight. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Each month we have the opportunity to recognize the contribution of our employees, and I'd like to list some employee anniversaries that we have. Mary Chicory with the Human Services, 5 years. Rodney Steele, Public Works, 5 years. Mrs. Radcliffe with Human Services for 5 years. Yolanda Mino with Human Services for 5 years. Marissa Nelson, Human Services, 5 years. Jondra Page, Human Services, 5 years. And Tracy Riley with Human Services, also having 5 years. With 10 years, Keith Baker with the Sheriff's Office. Brian Macarine with the Sheriff's Office, 10 years. Brian Seaman, Sheriff's Office, 10 years. And with 15 years, we have Michelle McCarver and Charles Howard with Human Services. Michelle was with Public Works. And with 25 years with the Sheriff's Office, Kevin Rogers. We also had some retirements we want to recognize for January. Beverly Osborne with Administrative Services, 19 years. James Kiker, Human Services, 6 years. This is the one that gave me a trouble. Edlina Shemarsky with 20 years. Is that okay? Okay. And Cindy Cotto, County Manager's Office, 8 years. We appreciate their service and dedication to Union County. Okay. Next, we have informal comments, and we've had no one sign up for informal comments. Is there anyone that failed to sign up that needs to speak? Okay. Next, we have additions, deletions, and/or adoption of the agenda. And I have an item I'd like to add to the agenda. Move to request staff to provide notice of public hearing on February 4th in accordance with GS 158.71 for the following purposes: acquisition of an interest in real property for economic development purposes and appropriation of funds for conveyance to the City of Monroe by interlocal agreement for economic development purposes. I'd like to add that to our new business 24A. So, are there any other additions, deletions that?
Motion to approve agenda as amended.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That takes us to old business. And the first item on old business is Marshall Utility System Acquisition Board Update. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, asked Michael James and Aubrey Laughlin to come forward and present to you their presentation on the Marshall Utility System Acquisition Update.
All right, thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
James.
Watson. Chairman and Commissioners, appreciate your time. There we go. So staff has been working for about a month now in trying to prepare for the potential acquisition of the Marshall system. We wanted to provide the board with an update as to where we are now, and we'll be doing this throughout the process so the board is aware of the status of the negotiations and kind of discussions we're having with the town. So we'll do the same thing for the town of Marshall. We thought it was important that they understand also the progress that we're making. And if they have any questions for staff, we can answer those. But for us all to be communicating the same message. So I'll talk about the acquisition process from the operations side, and I'll also ask Chris Potato to come up. The last few slides will talk about the Monroe gas line extension to provide some additional information for the board. So as the board is aware, we had the stay order from the Superior Court on December 4th based on the settlement agreement in principle. The county attorney then reached out to the town attorney in Marshville to begin and open up that dialogue and discussion with the town of Marshall staff. And that did include an initial information request. We knew we wanted to have some initial information to kind of understand the system from a big picture level, which we did that. We had a kickoff meeting on December 18th with myself, the Public Works Director, and the Marshall Town Manager. And so we wanted to gain an understanding of the Marshall system. We know a little bit about it, but we wanted to gather some information and some documentation from the town. So we discussed in general the overview of the Marshall utility system. We went through some capital improvement plan documents that they have, went over some active contracts that are in place, Anson Water obviously being the biggest contract that we wanted to look at and evaluate, and also some financial documentation from them as well. And the Marshall staff has been wonderful to work with. They've been sending us documentation, calling us, emailing us with information, and we definitely appreciate that. But that's really where we are right now, is in the document gathering standpoint. So currently we have probably well over 100 documents that Marshall has sent to us. We had a meeting with our public works staff last week and kind of showed them all the information that we have, especially getting the operations team and the engineering team in place so they can review all the documents that we have from Marshall. We really want to identify kind of the knowledge gaps that we have so we can go back to the town and kind of ask for some follow-up information on things we don't quite understand about the system. Because it's very important that as a staff and as a board that you all understand what we're walking into in a potential settlement, what some of the weaknesses are in the system, what some of the issues are, so we can make sure that we plan accordingly for that once that system becomes ours. So we're also going to have a legal team meeting with our outside counsel, which is Steve Weber with Parker Poe. We're going to meet with him, Richard, Jeff, and our legal team to kind of talk about some of the legal and financial transactions that need to happen and make sure we plan that out accordingly, as well as kind of dealing with the operational aspect of taking that system on. Right now we're scheduled to go to the Marshall Town Council on February 4th to give a similar presentation to their board so that they'll understand what our process is, that we'll talk about milestones over the coming months. And again, they can ask questions of us as to what the process is going to look like as far as the acquisition negotiation. So what we know so far, obviously we're very early on in this process. We're still gathering information from their staff. We know pretty much how many water and sewer customers we're looking at. They sent us quite a bit of financial information, some active grants and loans that they may be involved in, but we're still in that information gathering phase. So we're still trying to evaluate what we know, what we don't know, and make sure that we ask for that information so we can have a clear picture from a staff standpoint. So I wanted to give the board an estimated timeline. We're thinking probably 12 to 18 months to get this through, maybe sooner. But there are a lot of unknowns right now that we're dealing with, and I'm sure as we meet with legal and meet with our staff, there'll be additional questions that we have that we need to go reach out to Marshall to try to get that information from them. And as we discover new information, we'll need to dig deeper into that. Again, with the ultimate goal of knowing exactly all the details about the system that we can possibly understand to make sure that we're ready to manage that system from day one. So that's a general update as far as where we are. Again, we're kind of high level right now, but we're having a good working relationship with the town. And I appreciate the town manager, what he's done, and being open about the information that he has, what he doesn't know, and sharing that with staff. So it's been a good start to this whole discussion. Any questions for me before I hand it over to Chris?
Thank you very much. Want to just give you a brief update on the potential project here. The construction timeline will be a multi-phase project. And again, it should be released and hopefully completed within 2019. There's really several pieces of it: 90 to 120 days of engineering, 30 to 60 days of right-of-way acquisition, 30 to 60 days of permits, including crossing under CSX, which is a fixed amount of time, and then 120 days for construction. And again, a lot of these can happen concurrently, so they're anticipating roughly 9 to 12 months. Sort of on the outlier is 12 months for construction. It would be phased. Initially, there would be a 6-inch line extended from its terminus right now at, I believe, Union West Elementary, extending into the town of Marshville. That 6-inch line is roughly 8,756 feet. And then they would extend the next piece all the way out to Peachland, close to the county line. And then the final 4-inch leg would go through town and go up to Edwards Main's headquarters. And so this is really contingent upon Edwards Wood Products. The cost of the pipeline is $1,255,909 is the estimated cost as of right now. Edwards use would consume most of that construction and maintenance cost, shy of about $71,000. And so that's what we're asking you to do, is to look at that as a contribution in aid through that interlocal agreement with the city of Monroe to fill that gap, and therefore it would benefit all the citizens out to the east, as well as helping Edwards continue to grow and expand.
Chris?
Yes, sir.
Your slide says it's a gas line, but I don't want anyone to confuse the water sewer lines we're talking about with the
Correct.
gas line correction that you're discussing.
Yeah, please, yeah, this is a natural gas line that we are talking about that would be an extension from the current one that's in 74. They are two different projects, but you're talking about bolstering the infrastructure of eastern North Carolina, where they will be prepared for economic development. So again, the monies need to be paid prior to start, just to get the engineering and everything going, to make sure there's a commitment for the project. The Monroe Economic Development Board of Advisors, Monroe Union County Board of Advisors voted for up to $200,000 of money toward the project. That was not necessary. The project's already been approved by the city of Monroe to go forward, pending Edwards signing the agreement and getting the additional contribution in aid of Union County. We're asking for up to $100,000 to cover that, just in case there's right-of-way or rock or some unforeseen gap that would occur between the $71,000 and the $100,000. If for some reason the rest of the cost of the line is consumed by the usage of Edwards, if for some reason they do not consume enough gas to pay for that line, that agreement is they are on the hook for paying that back to Monroe, any shortages. So the only obligation, the only risk sitting there for the county is this up to $100,000 for this. So this benefits all the citizens of Marshville, as well as all of our citizens going east, as well as helping an industry.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Question?
Yes.
Chris, I don't know if I need you or who I need. There's about $434,000 that we also discussed them being able to use for natural gas to extend to the residents of the town, and that's still on the table as well, right? There was $434,000 that they owed us and back payments.
There was $434,000, and it was to be applied to a project within their water system development, at least per the letter agreement that they agreed to.
Okay.
That's what the agreement says. Now, if you want to move forward with that, you can do something different with that. But it's about $434,000. You are correct in the number amount. It was to be applied to a water and sewer project in addition to any amounts that we agreed to do otherwise. They did not come back and request that it be applied
To natural gas?
to natural gas. That was not part of their request.
Okay, we need to clarify that.
Okay.
I apologize. If you've not seen that, that is the map. So it is limited. Those are the mains put in place. There would not be any additional pipelines associated with the project that we've discussed. So any distribution lines within the town, like in the main street area, that would be up to somebody at that point, based on usage, other things.
But that's available to their,
Yeah, once the main's there, then
population.
you can spider off of that.
okay.
And again, it could be, if there's usage there, it could be paid for by that usage. We just have to see.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Was there another part that, was that with the gas line? Gas line was the other addition.
Yes, sir, that was the last piece.
That's the last piece.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Any
And since it
questions,
was
Bill?
information only, any further questions?
Like I said, as we get more into it, we'll have more information, but right now, everything's off to a pretty good start.
Okay. Next item will be our addition that we added for the public hearing. Mr. Manager, would you like someone to explain a little more on that, or is that it in totality? Do we need explanation on that, or just the
Mr.
motion
Chairman,
we?
I can explain that very quickly.
Okay,
The statutes require that prior to spending or appropriating money for economic development, that you hold a public hearing. And so that we're asking that you authorize staff or ask staff to go ahead and publish notice of 2 public hearings for next meeting. And that's what this is.
okay. Can I have a motion to, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have a discussion on our galvanized water main replacements. Mr. Manager, if you,
Mr. Chair, members of the board, at the last meeting, this particular item was placed on the meeting and then taken off and moved to tonight. Background is that this is part of the galvanized water main replacement project. This project is an FY18 project identified in the 2011 Comprehensive Master Plan. Funding allocations were included in the approved capital improvement program. Improvements include the installation of approximately 9,700 feet of 6-inch, 8-inch, and 12-inch water mains for the purposes of replacing undersized water mains, appropriately sized mains, providing fire protection to underserved water customers, and providing redundancy and serviceability to the water system by creating additional loops within the system. This project was bid out in December through the Union County Procurement Division. A number of bids were received. Staff recommends that the project be awarded to the lowest responsive bidder, Fuller and Company Construction LLC, in the amount of $996,729.14.
okay. Do I have any questions? Can I have a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept it, the bid.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to new business, the FY20 budget workshop calendar. Ms. Lancaster? She's already moved.
Okay.
Thank you. In an effort to better streamline our budget process, staff is proposing an additional meeting schedule for budget workshops. We are asking that the board schedule the second and fourth Mondays from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. for budget workshops beginning next week, January 28th, and ending May 28th. This will provide us 9 additional sessions focused solely on the FY20 budget process, and I've included in your agenda package the information that outlines all of the topics that have already been identified for budget workshops, and we would anticipate adding more as those workshops go forward. We feel like this would just give the board and our staff a set calendar that we can follow throughout the budget planning months, and if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Michelle? No, ma'am. So we need a...
Motion to adopt the FY20 budget workshop calendar.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Since you're there, you want to
I'm
talk about
next.
the legislation?
Yes, Chairman Helms and Commissioners. Tonight, I'd like to review with you briefly our proposed guiding principles and primary goals for the 2019 long session of the General Assembly. New General Assembly members were sworn in on January 9th and will be back in Raleigh beginning January 30th to begin their work for this long session. As you know, we utilize the firm Troutman Sanders for our lobbying work in Raleigh, specifically Daniel Baum, who handles our issues there on a daily basis. I also want to thank Daniel and our delegation for the work that they've done the past 3 years on our behalf, as we have put together a formal package to take to them each year. As a reminder, we're scheduled for our delegation breakfast next Monday, January 28th at 8:30 a.m. at the Hilltop Restaurant. And we'll be going over this with them after its adoption tonight, or any changes that you might have. The proposed guiding principles are consistent with what we've used the past few years. These simply give myself and Daniel some guidelines as issues pop up quickly sometimes that we need to react to regarding any potential unintended consequences for the county. And just to go over those briefly, guiding principle 1 would be to support legislative efforts that protect and or enhance local government's revenues and or increase local funding flexibility. And our second guiding principle would be to oppose any unfunded mandates and any initiatives that fail to fully fund services shifted to the county responsibility. This year we are proposing 4 primary goals. They fall under the categories of transportation, economic development, hunting limitation, and system development fees, and I'll briefly go over those as well. For transportation, we would be working to seek legislation that strengthens Union County's influence regarding transportation projects within our county limits. Economic development, we would be seeking legislation that clarifies statutory language regarding when a public hearing is required for economic development purposes. Hunting limitation, seeking local legislation that would make it unlawful to take or attempt to take wildlife on the land of another while under the influence of an impairing substance. And under system development fees, we would be seeking legislation that clarifies statutory language regarding the collection of system development fees, specifically regarding the timing of that collection. As you can see, these are written very broadly to provide us some flexibility as we work with Daniel, our delegation, and other staff in Raleigh to really clarify what would be best suited for this session. And at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions and take any suggestions for changes or any additions that the board would like to see.
Anyone like to share? Michelle? All further questions?
Thank you.
I think you're pretty clear. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Number 28 is the appointment to Central Carolina Workforce Development Board. Suzanne Hearn served as an audit adult education and literacy representative on the Workforce Development Board. Ms. Hearn submitted her resignation from this board. Her term expires on June 30th, 2019. The vacancy has been advertised. Kaylee Miner, Director of the Literacy Council of Union County, has submitted her application. Central Carolina Workforce Board is recommending appointment of Ms. Miner to fill this vacancy. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to beat the 7:45. Comments, Mr. Manager?
I have none this evening, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Akins.
No comments.
Okay, Commissioner Simpson.
I'd just like to thank Michael and staff on that Marshville update, and I appreciate your work on that. Look forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Rake.
No comments.
And I'd like to thank the manager. He's hit the road running, and we look forward to working with him, and we appreciate Michael and Aubrey, the work that y'all did on the utilities and the Marshville. We're looking forward to that because I think it's going to provide some great opportunities for Marshville and their citizens as they go for their new environment with a freeway coming right to their doorstep. And with that, I'd like to wish everyone a good evening. A motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Is that okay, Jeff?